FM and AM 820's Marketplace. On the show tonight, as AI enters the mainstream, more workers are worried their jobs will be replaced.
This is a different kind of transformation, and it's one that especially targets the white-collar workforce right now.
A look at job insecurity in the age of AI. That's next on Marketplace. We'll be back with all things considered at 7 o'clock tonight. Right now here in Lower Manhattan, 73 degrees. It's a little bit cloudy outside, but it should stay that way tonight. We'll have lows in the low 60s. Tomorrow, high near 75. You're listening to WNYC. It's a Monday evening at 6:30.
WNYC support comes from Pine Street School in Lower Manhattan, accepting students from nursery through 8th grade, offering immersive Spanish or Mandarin and a global IB curriculum. Learn more at pinestreetschool.com.
This is WNYC, 93.9 FM and AM 820, NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto Networks delivers what's next in cybersecurity innovation to protect today's digital way of life. Learn more at paloaltonetworks.com.
How often should publicly traded companies have to tell us what they're up to? And big AI companies share what we're getting up to with chatbots. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Avalara, providing businesses with cloud-based tools and managed services for property tax compliance. From filing returns to tracking assessments, Avalara can help. Learn more at avalara.com/propertytax. And by Odoo, dedicated to providing software designed to scale with businesses. Odoo's programs for manufacturing, accounting, and more aim to provide building blocks for creating a custom software suite. Odoo, what businesses need. And by the United States Postal Service, offering postage stamps for purchase at checkout at over 40,000 participating supermarkets and drugstores, and at wholesale clubs Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club, and BJ's.
In Washington, I'm Kimberly Adams, in for Kai Rizdal. It's Monday, September 15th. Good to have you along. The President of the United States, never one to shy away from challenging the economic status quo, took to his social media platform this morning to argue that companies are oversharing a bit. For decades, the Securities and Exchange Commission has required public companies to report earnings 4 times a year. We talk about these quarterly earnings reports all the time on the show. President Trump says that should change to just twice a year. It's something he asked the SEC to review during his first term as well. Marketplace's Christian Schwab weighs the pros and cons.
Public companies spend a lot of time filing required earnings reports and preparing for earnings calls. Those are optional, but have become common practice. Accountants, lawyers, and executives analyze every number and every word in these reports. They require a ton of resources.
If you talk to most CFOs at most publicly traded companies, they'd probably rather go to twice a year from 4 times a year.
Scott Wren, senior global market strategist at the Wells Fargo Investment Institute, says some execs think quarterly reports are distracting and narrow a company's focus.
Many companies, they're managing quarter to quarter
instead of thinking longer term, because each report impacts stock price. Sam Stovall, chief investment strategist at CFRA Research, says an acute attention to shareholder value can dissuade companies from taking risks.
But if it was open for 6 months, then there could be the ability to introduce new strategies and then shut them down quickly if need be.
Or give new strategies a chance to succeed before the market weighs in. Now, 6 months could also give companies time to do a lot of damage. Imagine if a manufacturer sees a giant drop in revenue and investors only find out half a year later.
The worry is that there could be increased volatility in the share prices since there's a greater lag between when actual data would be reported.
The reporting lag could make investors uncomfortable buying a company's stock altogether. It could also allow companies to delay dealing with problems or just hide information. John Blank is chief economist at Zacks Investment Research.
You would be pushing less information into the public space and allowing companies to basically be much more private about what they do.
After all, these are public companies. Transparency is part of the process. I'm Kristen Schwab for Marketplace.
Wall Street today, tech stocks and movement on the China tariff talks had traders feeling good. We'll have the details when we do the numbers. Some drama is going down in the home appliance industry. Whirlpool is accusing several of its overseas rivals of evading tariffs. The Michigan-headquartered company reportedly told the Trump administration that it suspects companies including Samsung, LG, and Haier, which owns GE Appliances, are declaring artificially low values on their imported goods in customs paperwork so they can pay less in import taxes. Whirlpool is facing tariff pressures of its own because of the steel and aluminum that it imports for its washers and dryers and dishwashers. Right now, the company has just flagged the issue, according to the Wall Street Journal, not filed a formal complaint yet. But in general, higher tariffs can provide a bigger incentive for a form of evasion called undervaluation. Marketplace's Megan McCarty-Carino has more.
There are totally non-fraudulent reasons a foreign exporter might lower the value of its goods in the face of higher tariffs, says Bernard Yaros at Oxford Economics. Companies could just be pricing their goods lower and taking a smaller profit.
They are eating the cost, so to speak, of these tariffs to remain competitive.
Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics on the price of imports in recent months suggest this may be happening in some cases. Values have fallen for some Chinese computers and apparel and European wines and spirits. But that's not what Whirlpool is accusing its competitors of doing, says Alexander Breckenridge, a trade compliance lawyer at Jones Walker.
The difference is actually lying about the value of what you have produced before it's imported.
That's a particular risk when one company is doing both the exporting and the importing.
If you're not selling it for anything different in this country than you were beforehand, then that's fraud.
The Department of Justice has launched a cross-agency task force to step up tariff enforcement, but Mary Lovely at the Peterson Institute for International Economics says responding quickly is going to be tough.
There's an enormous enforcement challenge given just the scale of what President Trump has done. So, Customs and Border Patrol is got firefights everywhere.
On top of that, a lot of customs reporting is still done on paper. I'm Megan McCarty-Carino for Marketplace.
It's been 5.5 years since the pandemic started, shutting down offices and abruptly sending lots of people home to work. Now, while many have since gone back to the office at least part-time, according to research from Stanford, about 35% of people are currently working from home at least one day a week. That's 4 times as many as before COVID. But this year has been a big one for high-profile return-to-office announcements. JP Morgan, Amazon, AT&T, and Dell have all told their employees they now have to come back full-time. A majority of Fortune 100 companies are now requiring people to come into the office 5 days a week, which is up from just 5% in 2023. Marketplace's Samantha Fields reports.
When Zach Dawson first got hired at JP Morgan as a software engineer in 2023, the deal was he had to go to the Atlanta office 3 days a week.
At that time, I was living close to the office. I was living about 15 minutes away. And I also didn't have a child at the time.
So it felt okay. He also really liked his job and the people he worked with.
The team I had was it was definitely the best team I've ever been on.
But about a year in, while he was on parental leave this past winter, JP Morgan announced everyone would have to return to the office 5 days a week. Dawson had no interest, especially now that he had a baby and an hour-long commute. And he says his colleagues didn't either.
Nobody wanted it at all. There were people posting like in the internal boards complaining, like so many people.
So many that the company locked the internal boards and shut down the discussion. JP Morgan did not respond to a request for comment. This has been a big year for companies calling people back to the office full-time, especially in finance and tech. Why now?
The biggest thing is the swing from being an employee market versus an employer market.
Kate Lister at Global Workplace Analytics says a few years ago,
companies were desperate for people, so they were doing anything they could to keep them happy.
One way to do that was to let people work from home. But now, with a slowing job market, concerns about the economy, and the proliferation of artificial intelligence, many companies feel like they don't have to anymore. Nick Bloom at Stanford says for some, return to office is actually partly a way to do layoffs without actually doing layoffs.
Firms will announce a 5-day return to the office, and then, that day or a few days later, they say, oh, by the way, we're thinking of trimming headcount by 5-10%. And if you'd like to leave because you don't want to come in the office 5 days a week, thank you very much. That would be great.
About 80% of people who work jobs that can be done remotely don't want to go to the office full-time, Bloom says. But many like to go sometimes.
People want to, on average, work from home about 2-3 days a week.
And his research finds there is value in having people in the office a couple days a week. But requiring 5 days doesn't make any difference to a company's performance. What it does do is reduce employee satisfaction and increase turnover, especially among women and high-performing employees. Lisa Schreibersdorf, executive director of the nonprofit public defender's office Brooklyn Defender Services, says she is concerned about that.
But I can't let that be the deciding factor.
She recently decided that after years of hybrid work, it was important to have everyone back in the office full time.
I think each year that passes, where you have people that never worked together in person before the pandemic, it gets more and more difficult to assure that the staff is getting all the skills that they need to get from us.
She says many of the newer attorneys and younger employees want more in-person interaction, and she also feels like it's important for the clients they're defending too. But the new 5-day mandate has been contentious with the Brooklyn Defender Services Union. So has the prospect of having to clock in and out with a location-based app. Rebecca Orleans is an attorney at BDS, and she already spends a lot of time in court and in the office. But she also really values being able to work from home sometimes, to focus on writing motions and take sensitive calls with clients.
We take a pay cut by doing this job. You become a public defender because you care about the work. It's famously not well paid, very emotionally difficult, but you do it because you care.
Being able to finish her day and just be home or make it to her favorite workout class makes a difference too. And having that flexibility taken away makes her feel disrespected.
This is my dream job, but I also can't work somewhere that gives me no flexibility and that insults my commitment to the work like this.
That's similar to how Zach Dawson felt when JP Morgan announced everyone there would have to start going in full time.
I was immediately looking for another job.
He lucked out and found one that's fully remote, so he quit. I'm Samantha Fields for Marketplace.
Speaking of how we work, and not to put anyone on the spot, but how are you using AI chatbots these days? Did AI whip up that cover letter you were too tired to write yourself? Was it you or a chatbot that wrote that report that your boss demanded with no notice? AI giants OpenAI and Anthropic each put out research in the past few days looking at how humans are actually using ChatGPT and Claude, their respective chatbots. Matt Levin from Marketplace has some of the findings.
So pretty much every time I ask ChatGPT to do something, I start with some basic pleasantry. Hey, ChatGPT, or hi, ChatGPT, or even the occasional, what's up, ChatGPT? Doesn't hurt to be polite. Turns out I am in the minority.
2% of all conversations are greetings and chit-chat, so not a super high share.
David Deming is an economist at Harvard and a co-author of the research published by OpenAI. He says anthropomorphized ChatGPT companionships are also pretty rare. The biggest use case, what Deming calls practical guidance, basically personally tailored advice and instruction.
Give me a workout routine so that I can get stronger, or help me figure out what I should plant in my garden, or make a grocery list for me.
Early on, when ChatGPT came out, personal and work-related uses were split 50-50. Now 70% of ChatGPT conversations involve our private lives. Our trust in AI also seems to be increasing. Almost 40% of the interactions with the Anthropic chatbot Claude empower the AI to fully automate a task, as opposed to interactively collaborating with the robot. Peter McCrory is an economist with Anthropic.
It might be that people are becoming more comfortable using this type of technology and trusting Claude more. Or it might reflect the fact that Claude is now more capable of doing a wider and wider range of tasks entirely independently.
Coding is probably the best example here. Programmers can just tell Claude, hey, code this, and don't have to debug anything afterwards. Stanford communications professor Jeff Hancock says part of the reason AI may not be advancing in the workplace as much as hoped, fear.
So if you're an employee, especially a younger one, and you find that this system can do a decent part of your job, you may be really scared to show that.
Because you worry about being replaced. I'm Matt Levin for Marketplace.
Coming up,
we do houseplant sitting, we do repotting, we do houseplant hospitals, so we're plant doctors.
Making green using your green thumb. But first, let's do the numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 49 points, 0.1%, to finish at 45,883. The Nasdaq added 207 points, a little over 0.9%, to close at 22,348. The S&P 500 found 30 points, about 0.5%, to end at 6615. Some of that bump came as U.S. negotiators wrapped up trade talks with China in Madrid, where Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also said they agreed to a framework on a TikTok deal. Back here in the U.S., we learned today that Elon Musk purchased an additional $1 billion worth of Tesla stock. That's less than 0.1% of it, but Tesla accelerated 3 0.6%. Bonds rose, the yield on the 10-year T-note fell to 4.03%, and you're listening to Marketplace.
The Numbers is supported by Mercury, a fintech that offers banking, credit cards, and financial software. Marketplace is supported by Bitwarden Password Manager. On personal and business devices from any location, Bitwarden is designed to secure sensitive information without the need to remember multiple passwords for every site, account, or application. Learn more at bitwarden.com. And by Progressive Insurance. On the road and at home, customers can simplify their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto with Progressive Insurance. Learn more about Progressive and bundling at progressive.com. And by Amazon Business, dedicated to helping businesses save time on office tasks and empower leaders with business buying solutions that support teams to focus on growing the business. Learn about smart business buying at amazonbusiness.com.
In 1960, Howard University students joined the Children of Union Organizers and Holocaust Survivors to protest segregation at a Maryland amusement park. It was one of the first integrated protests of the civil rights movement. The story is told in the new documentary, Ain't No Back to a Merry-Go-Round. On the next All of It, Emmy Award-winning director Alana Trackman joins us to discuss. I'm Allison Stewart. Join us for All of It weekdays at noon on WNYC.
WNYC receives support from the Joyce Theater, presenting Indigenous Enterprise. Their newest production, Still Here, honors their ancestors and reminds the world of the living culture that is Indigenous dance. September 16th through 21st. Tickets at joyce.org.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. In the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, officials in the U.S. have announced a framework that would let Chinese-owned TikTok continue operations in the United States, though the two countries are still working out the details. That and more at 7.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kimberly Adams. Matt was just telling us about all the ways people are using AI these days and how it's changing how we live and work. Big companies like Salesforce and IBM have been pretty open about AI causing job losses in their businesses. And with the unemployment rate ticking up, a lot of folks are reasonably concerned that their jobs could be next. Jeff Dixon is a sociology professor at College of Holy Cross, and he wrote a piece for The Conversation about why those AI job losses may look different here than elsewhere in the world. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thanks a lot, Kimberly. I really appreciate you having me.
Let's start by getting on the same page about the term American exceptionalism, which is often used in politics to talk about America being different from other countries. When it comes to the labor force and jobs in particular, what makes America different from other similar countries?
Well, Kimberly, one of the things that makes the U.S. different is its at-will employment system. The United States' labor protections just really aren't as strong as those, especially in Europe and among some of these wealthier countries. And it gives employers a great deal of power over workers.
Now, in this piece, you say that, quote, even before AI came into the picture, American workers were facing a system stacked against them. How so?
Well, it's really due to some of those relative lack of labor protections that I was just mentioning. And then also it's due to the fact that the U.S. has a relatively modest welfare state certainly compared to some of the Nordic countries in Europe like Sweden, where, for example, workers and just citizens more generally have greater protections in the case of job loss, in the case of other kind of unforeseen circumstances. Here in the United States, there's not much of a safety net, a social safety net, and it's one that's also been clawed back over the years, and most recently with what President Trump has called the Big Beautiful Bill.
So why do you think AI might make this situation worse?
Really because, Kimberly, AI has this revolutionary potential, which I think a lot of people are now coming to understand. And part of its revolutionary potential is to take on a number of the tasks that a lot of us do. That has particular implications for a number of workers whose job it is to, for example, synthesize or somehow create new knowledge. And this is also why some scholars and pundits argue that this is a different kind of transformation. And it's one that especially targets the white-collar workforce right now. Add on to that what is called agentic AI, which not only has that ability to generate seemingly new knowledge, but to plan and act autonomously. And you can imagine how a number of positions might soon fall by the wayside if they haven't already.
I want to wrap up because you have laid out this really clear argument of what makes America different from other similar positioned countries in terms of wealth and infrastructure or whatever, in terms of our labor market, right? So America has a different social safety net, different labor rights, lower unionization rates. So spin that forward. If we don't change anything, if we don't end up looking like Europe, how does AI play out in our job market?
This is where I guess I'm most pessimistic, because I see some of the most recent policy changes in the direction of policy. I believe that very much we have a AI-friendly environment here in the United States. And given a qualitative break in AI and labor policies, this is just going to set the stage for rising insecurity in the United States. And what I mean by that is, like, at the very least, people feeling fearful of their jobs. That, in combination with AI and its rapid advances, I do believe spells quite a bit of trouble for workers here in the United States. But what can be done, I am really at a bit of a loss.
Well, on that pessimistic outlook, I'm going to leave it there. Jeff Dixon is a sociology professor at the College of Holy Cross, writing about AI and the labor market. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Of the economic releases we'll get this week, one will be the August retail sales out tomorrow. And so ahead of that, we were able to get Johanna Dominguez on the phone. She sells plants at her shop, Put a Plant on It, in Buffalo, New York.
Right now, this is kind of our slow season, but it gives us a chance to run inventory, do projects that we've been meaning to do. Like I have a wall I need to repair that I've been needing to repair for months. And it's just a nice time to slow down and do all the projects that need to be done. Our inventory right now, so we get plants from Canada and we get plants from Florida. We have 4 different growers that we work with in Canada, and only one of them have passed the tariff cost onto us so far, and that person is splitting it. So instead of putting the 25% tariffs on us, they're eating 12.5 and then they're raising 12.5, which, it's better than 25. We only raise things a little bit, not too much to cover those costs. So no one's ever really said anything or complained about something like that. And that is mostly on our basic plants. So a $5 plant, we, raise it $1 to $6 to $7. We are sustaining, but not growing. And so I would say, yes, maybe the biggest challenge is growing. I would like to see like a 20 to 30% increase in sales in general. And I know a lot of people can't necessarily afford to buy more, which is kind of why we're trying to push more of our services instead. We do houseplant sitting, we do repotting, we do houseplant hospitals, so we're plant doctors. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, is trying to push more of our services and something that you can't get anywhere else but us, and try and get the growth there. I would say I feel still kind of a little bit more of a trepidation about the future. I do feel like Buffalo is such a great community of people who support small businesses, and that's part of the reason why I ended up here as opposed to many of the other places that I could have ended up. So I'm hoping maybe that it's going to be, it's going to encourage people to shop more locally, kind of like it was during the pandemic. But that's kind of, I guess, where I'm kind of hoping things end up.
Johanna Dominguez running Put a Plant on It in Buffalo, New York.
Marketplace is supported by JLL, providing insights and perspectives for businesses around the world designed to align their real estate with strategic goals. JLL.com. JLL. See a brighter way.
This final note on the way out today: anime fans flex their economic muscle this weekend. The latest movie in the hit Demon Slayer franchise broke records at the box office, earning $70 million. The Crunchyroll Sony Pictures film Demon Slayer Infinity Castle was the #1 movie this weekend and set a record for the biggest opening ever for an anime film. It was a surprise for many entertainment industry analysts, but among those of us who are actually anime fans, we're not surprised at all. Amir Babawi, Caitlin Esch, John Gordon, Noya Carr, Amanda Peacher, and Stephanie Seek are the Marketplace editing staff. Kelly Silvera is the news director, and I'm Kimberly Adams. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. This is APM.
WNYC